Hi everyone, welcome back again to my YouTube channel. In this video, we're going to be drafting the pattern for the making of this very cute dress right here. In my next tutorial, I'll be showing the full sewing video. So if this is something you're interested in, keep on watching and let's get started.
So guys, to make my own dress, I'm going to be using this beautiful crepe fabric here. It's crepe for those of you who will be asking what type of fabric is this. And for you to be able to make this dress without any stress, you will need at least 3 yards of fabric. So this is the fabric we're going to be using. Let's go ahead and draft out the pattern. So guys, this is my pattern paper. It's in a fold here, and I've drawn out the starting line. Then from the starting line, I went ahead to draw out my bust line, my under bust line, and then my waistline here. So we're going to go ahead now and add our body measurements. Now we're going to go in by 3 inches from the center front here on the starting line, which is also the shoulder line. And then I want to come down by 3.5 inches for the depth. So I'm going to draw a round neckline across with my curve. Now still from the center here, from the center front, I'm going to mark half of my shoulder measurement, which is 7 inches. And then from this point, I'll come down by 1 inch. So from this 1 inch point, I'll connect a slant into the neckline. So this is my shoulder slope. Okay, now for my armhole depth, I'm going to divide my bust measurement by 6 and add 1.5 to it. So whatever you get, mark it. When I do that calculation, I get 7 inches. Now I'm going to draw a straight line across this point here with my pen. And from the shoulder slope, I'll connect a line as well, a straight line, to meet this new line I just drew. Now what I'm going to do is from the shoulder slope down to this new line, I normally call this chest line. I'm going to get the midpoint. So once you get the midpoint, you're going to go in from that midpoint by half of an inch. Now on this chest line here, you're going to divide your bust measurement by 4 and make a point. So now you will join all the 3 points together, the shoulder slope, the midpoint, and also the point on the chest line. So this is going to give you a very nice armhole, just like I have here. So now the next thing I'm going to go ahead and do is to get my nipple to nipple measurement. So half of my nipple to nipple measurement is 3.5 inches. For people that don't know it as nipple to nipple measurement, you can also it's also called the bust span. So I just marked my 3.5 inches on the bust line, the under bust line, and the waistline, and I'm drawing a straight line to connect them. Now from each side of this line I just drew, I'm just going to come out by ½ inch on both sides, and I'm going to connect these points to meet the top of the bust line like this. So just go ahead and do the same thing. If you already have a day of sewing, you know that we are creating our darts here. Now guys, from the shoulder here, I am going to divide what I have on this shoulder into 2 equal halves and get the midpoint. So from this point I just got, I'm going to just connect a straight line to meet the bust point. Okay, now the next thing is to determine how deep we want the neckline to be. So this is the chest line. From the shoulder to the chest line, I have 8 inches. That is actually too deep for like your neckline. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to come up a little bit from this chest line. You can come up by 1 inch, you can come up by 2 inches. It depends on how covered you want it to be. But for me, I just came up by 3/4 of an inch. So I just drew a straight line across this point. Now remember, this is the bust line, this is the under bust line, and here we have the waistline. Now on this under bust line here, I'm going to come out on both sides of my dart legs by 1/4 of an inch. So from the dart, come out by 1/4 of an inch, and on the other side do the same thing. If you're very busty, if you're on a bigger size, you can use ½ an inch on both sides for this. Okay, now once you're through with this, what I just want to do is to connect from these points into the bust point. So just connect your curves. Make sure it's not too curvy actually, because this is a simple dress. It's not going to be padded or anything, so you don't need the curve to be so much. Now at the top of the line that I created earlier, I just came out by 1/2 inch on both sides, and this 1/2 inch point I created on both sides of the line going towards the shoulder, I'm just using it to create curves as well. Now these areas I'm marking here are going to be cut off. Okay, so now let's add our body measurements. On the chest line here, my bust measurement divided by 4 is marked here. Now on the chest line, I'm going to mark the dart intake that I have. So it's 0.75, that's 3/4 of an inch. I replaced it back, and from that point I added extra 1.5 inch for stitching allowance. Now on the waistline, I'll mark my waist measurement divided by 4 here. I'm going to replace the dart, which is 1 inch here, and then I added an extra 1.5 inch for stitching allowance. So I'm going to join the last points together like this, and I'm just going to go ahead and extend the armhole to meet the side line as well. So guys, this upper part here is going to be the yoke. Okay, this upper part here is going to be the yoke. So from the center of this line, I am going to come in by 1 inch. So I'll make a point here at the 1 inch point. From here, we're going to try to get the V that is on the yoke on the dress we are trying to make. Okay, so from this point here, I came in by 4 inches. Just make sure it gets to the other part of the bustier. Okay, that's just what you need it to do. So it can actually be more than 4 inches as long as it gets to the other part of the bustier. And from the middle point of these 2 points that I got, I created a point upwards. This point is 3 inches long, so I'm just creating a triangle with all the points that I have. Okay, so this is just basically it. Now I'm going to go ahead and cut out the yoke first. As you can see, I would cut off the armhole area, and of course I will also remove the triangular part. I'm just also going to go ahead and cut out the remaining parts of the front pattern. So guys, this is it for the upper part of our dress. So let's leave this aside and cut the skirt part. Why I didn't actually cut the skirt part with the upper part is because the skirt part is not going to have a dart. Okay, so let's cut it separately. I'm going to draw a straight line across as a starting line. This is going to be serving as our waistline. Now from the waistline, I am going to measure down to my hip. So from my waist to hip, I have 9 inches. I'm also going to draw a straight line across this point as well. Now on the waistline here, I'm going to mark my waist measurement divided by 4, which is 6. I'm going to mark it here, and from this point I'll add 1.5 inch for stitching allowance. Note that I didn't add any dart allowance there. Now on the hip line, my hip measurement divided by 4 is 9. I marked it and added another 1.5 inch for stitching allowance. So I'll join these last points together with my hip curve. Now from the waistline here, I am going to come down by 4 inches. So come down by 4 inches. And from this 4 inch point, I'll go ahead and just draw a slant to meet the middle of my skirt. So this side here is going to be cut off. So this is just going to be the basque waistline on the skirt. So now just go ahead and watch the areas I'm cutting out. This is the yoke, this is the body, and then this is the skirt part. Then underneath here, we're going to be having the pleats on the skirt. So I went ahead to transfer this into my fabric, and my fabric is in a fold, as you can see on the center here. So this is the yoke. I have 2 of the yoke pieces. One is going to serve as lining and the other one will serve as the actual fabric. I also have 2 for the bustier area as well. One serving as the front and the other one serving as the lining. And also you will see that I also cut out the skirt part. I added stitching allowances in between, as you can see. I did not add any stitching allowance to the sides because we already added stitching allowance to the side when we were cutting out our pattern. Now I'm going to manipulate the bustier area of this front pattern to cut out the back. So now I've removed the fabric from the bustier and the yoke area. So what I want to do now is to join these two pieces together as one. So I'm going to be placing them like this. Make sure that they are exactly meeting at the end. That's where they are both straight. So make sure they meet at the end. One is not on top of each other on the end. The curved area is going to be on top. One is going to be on top of the other. But at the end, you just make sure that it's not overlapping. So once you've arranged it like this, just go ahead and pin it down. You're going to have a straight piece to use and cut out the back. For the yoke area as well, I'll just go ahead and arrange my piece like this and also tape it down. But if you don't want to go through with all this process, you can just draft your back pattern again. Okay, you can just draft a new back pattern, but I feel like this is a way to save your pattern paper, because at this point, at the point I was making this tutorial, I didn't really have enough pattern paper anymore, so I need to get new ones. So this way I'll be able to draft the back pattern with the front pattern that we have already drafted.
So now this way we've closed up every area that was curved, and you'll notice that the armhole is not exactly the same thing on the top and bottom again, but don't worry about it. We are going to be cutting this together, so you see how I go about it. Now I drew a straight line across my folded fabric. It is 1.5 inch away. So this line I drew here, 1.5 inch away from the end, is for my zipper allowance. So now I place the upper part and the skirt part exactly on that line, as you can see, and I'm just cutting and tracing out everything. So you can see how I traced out the armhole even though it's no longer full. And for the back neckline, I decided to just come down by 2 inches instead of the 3.5 inches we came down by on the front. So I'm opening up the back, and the same thing is what I'm going to be doing on the skirt area. The difference between the front and the back skirt pattern is just going to be the zipper allowance at the back. So yeah, this is basically it. And of course you need to open up the center back. So guys, these are all the patterns we are going to be using to make this dress. This is the upper part. Basically these are 2 back pieces, and of course we have all the front pieces ready as well. Now in my next tutorial, we are going to be joining all of these pieces together, and I'm going to be showing you the final look of how cute my beautiful dress looks with this very beautiful open yoke that we have here. So thank you so much for watching. In my next tutorial, I'll be showing you guys how to join these pieces together.